Hey, what is up, mortals? It is TCCrew here with a new video for you. Welcome to part 6 of Season 1 of What If Deku Had 3 Wishes. I just wanted to greet you guys by just saying, sit back and relax. You're in for a treat. So, we begin. The school day started like any other. Students arrived, teachers prepared, and villains plotted. Ignore the last bit. For Class 1A, it was oddly mundane. After the explosive, literally, battle trials, being told by their sleep-deprived teacher to choose a class representative was a drastic change in pace. That nonetheless ended up causing quite a ruckus from a good portion of the class, shouting out why they would be the best choice. Some reasons stated were significantly better than others. The cacophony was quieted by Ida, who loudly but reasonably suggested the class vote on their representative. To Midoriya's surprise, he ended up getting the most votes, exceeding Yaoyorozu and Ida, both of whom had significantly more confident presence in social situations. So, yeah, he didn't expect that. And he accepted the position with the expected level of social anxiety-induced stuttering. Luckily, his suffering came to an end quickly when the bell rang for lunch. You would think that lunch would be a pretty good opportunity to relax for the students. You would be wrong, because it was during lunch that a bunch of reporters and camera operators broke into UA's campus in a way that is definitely not obvious or known and set off the Level 3 Intruder alarm. The resulting stampede through the cafeteria wasn't exactly conducive to eating. In fact, it sent a good portion of the food to the floor. In the chaos, it was Ida who calmed the masses through an inquisitive impersonation of an emergency exit sign, and by telling the students that there wasn't any danger to them yet. This series of events led to two things. Number one, Midoriya stepped down as the student representative and put Ida in charge instead. Number two, the faculty of UA were now very on edge. They couldn't find anything that may have been stolen, but someone with a powerful quirk caused a distraction and was able to gain entry to the school. And that was more than enough cause for concern. So, Nezu made a simple decision. Security was to go on alert while All Might was off campus for the USJ exercise the next day. Chances could not be taken without their symbol there as a deterrent. Nezu was not often wrong. To be fair to him, attempting to directly attack All Might is a stupid idea. But that the attack would be focused on the less defended UA was the wrong assumption to make. The day came and went. However, what a special day it was. Rescue training for Class 1A with All Might, Eraserhead, and the Space Hero 13 as their instructors. But as the class prepared their outfits and equipment, and even as All Might was stopping crimes on his way to the USJ unhindered, an infinitely more dangerous faction was preparing themselves. Kurogiri was quite happy with his bar setup. It was well equipped to serve customers and typically big enough to be just pleasantly crowded. It was not set up to hold several dozen idiotic and aggressive small-time villains. And this wasn't even all of the villains they had gathered for their first phase of their League of Villains. Maybe a league one day, but it was ragtag at the moment. He and Sensei both agreed on that. Tomura was simply perpetually annoyed, no matter who was there. Luckily, Kurogiri wouldn't be trapped in his hell for long, as the time for their attack approached. Impatience and fear ran riot through the ranks of the petty thieves, ne'er-do-wells, and doers of a general villainy. The former, because they all wanted to start the attack, and the latter because of the giant, completely still and terrifying Birdman that was the Nomu, the anti-symbol of peace, as had been advertised to each of them during their recruitment. They could believe it. The chattering among these criminal elements ceased quickly, however, when Shigaraki and Kurogiri both moved to stand in front of the group.
Get ready. It's time to destroy this society and burn what's left after its pillars collapse.
Shigaraki gave the signal, and Kurogiri opened the portal, alongside several other portals to the other gathering locations. The League walked through, the dozens of villains appearing within the central plaza of the USJ, and throughout the other zones within. An army occupying every zone, to the maximum of their ability within the massive enclosed environmental simulation. The leaders and their group within the central plaza were greeted with a sight that, even with Shigaraki's assurances about his weapon, sent even greater terror through their hearts. All Might standing tall, staring down at the ones here to kill him. The students and the teachers were shocked that anyone would have the sheer audacity to invade a UA campus. All Might didn't much care about who gave them the audacity, and cared more about how many people he was going to have to punch to get them off his property. His eyes scanned across the crowd of villains as he completely tuned out Shigaraki, giving some sort of monologue. All Might noticed the Birdman standing with the leaders of this league, as the handyman was describing it. He seemed like he was likely the biggest threat here. At the moment, Shigaraki, as he announced his name said the only sentence that actually concerned All Might.
We're here to kill you, All Might, and destroy this broken society.
Sure, you came here with a plan. A stupid one, but a plan nonetheless. As All Might projected his characteristic bravado, Kurogiri was thinking. The hero Eraserhead had been canceling his quirk, and the rest of the League's quirks, since they arrived, though he hadn't charged yet, seemingly preferring to stay close to the students and the presence of All Might. Understandably. The underground hero was formidable, but he excelled in single combat. He would tire quickly if forced to charge the villains. Kurogiri understood one thing very clearly. Facing All Might by himself would be dangerous. Facing All Might with backup, even with just 2 heroes and a bunch of students, was suicidal. Facing All Might with Eraserhead as backup was the fastest way to end up in Tartarus prison for the rest of your life. Which was why he needed to enact the first step of the plan. Separate the students from their teachers and send them to their deaths. To that, however, Eraserhead needed to blink. And, so far, he'd only done so once. That split second had not been enough to move, not with Eraser's range on the high ground. It would seem I would need to go teach you all a lesson in manners. All Might move with ferocity, his landing in the plaza itself knocking back many of the small-time crooks with enough force to knock them down. Number 1, don't invite yourself over to someone else's place. It's not polite. This sponsor is by Skillshare. With the services Skillshare provides, you can get access to many in-depth tutorial videos on basically anything you want to learn. Each class that they have is bound to help you with your creative endeavors. Do you want to learn how to make videos like this one? Do you want to learn how to write scripts or edit audio? Skillshare has you covered. And with our link, you can have a 14-day free trial. So, what are you waiting for? Click the link now and get 14 days worth of classes free. Link in the description below. All Might began wading through the numbers of the League, making his way towards the leaders, and unknowingly creating the very opportunity they were waiting for. All Might had crossed into Eraserhead's line of vision, forcing the now annoyed hero to blink in order to avoid erasing All Might's quirk. And since he had been using his quirk continuously, he needed to wait longer before activating it again. But that moment was all that was needed to give Kurogiri the opportunity to warp himself up to the landing where the students were gathered in fear and anticipation. The confrontation was short. Bakugo and Kirishima's attempt to assault on Kurogiri's protected body provided only a mild inconvenience. The assault was ineffective, and with Aizawa and All Might still dealing with the fray they had jumped into, there was no longer anyone to stop Kurogiri from sending the students to the villains waiting throughout the disaster zones of the USJ. Kurogiri's portal sent a cloud of black mist around the students, attempting to teleport them away through the warp gates. The key word there being attempting. Izuku had always been quick to react. He had also pretty much always had a good memory. The quirk he received from the genie had been given with intent, and its two facets were very important: reaction to hostile actions and the ability to shield others. As soon as Kurogiri had arrived on the platform, Izuku had designated him as the target of his quirk. When the villain sent out the warp gate, Izuku shielded the whole class in a bubble of impenetrable energy. He'd extended the energy shield of antagonist very few times before, and never to the point of recharge. This time, he may have to. He was lucky that Kurogiri had come to the platform alone. Izuku could only hope the Cloud villain could be stopped within 2 minutes. Otherwise, he'd be at the villain's mercy. Kurogiri was getting frustrated, though. If he couldn't separate the students, it would be much harder to deal with them. The plan would have to change. Black hole! And that would complicate things. 13 had activated her quirk and aimed it at the exposed metal plating, which the two students had tried to exploit earlier. That was bad. Not just because she was trying to get rid of Kurogiri's protection, but because his warp gates were still open. The incredible gravitational suction was affecting every zone his portals were linked to. He would have to deal with her before either he succumbed to her quirk or to flying debris, although that was an idea. Kurogiri redirected several of his portals to one of the buildings they knew of in the fire zone, and set his plan into motion. The force of 13's quirk began ripping up the concrete, wood, and metal structure of the building, flinging it through the portals. And, thanks to Kurogiri's manipulation of his warp gates, the class started being pelted with the pieces. Izuku's shield not protecting them against the effects of 13's quirk. 13 quickly stopped her quirk once she realized it was being turned against them. If the damn green force field wasn't making it impossible to open warp gates within, he would have to turn 13's quirk directly back on them. Debris and a few bruises was better than nothing. Now that there was no longer a black hole trying to consume him, Kurogiri took the lull in the conflict as an opportunity to create a massive warp gate underneath the whole class. Izuku's bubble of force kept him afloat on the cloud, but his quirk's shield extend was half spent. The moment he let it down, they would be flung throughout the USJ. In the plaza was a far different story. Shigaraki, despite his irritation with his accomplice/career, was focusing on the fight in front of him. All Might was being hampered by the presence of the small-time villains. They were too close. He couldn't go all out against the beast that was the Nomu for the fear of potentially killing the villains with the shockwaves of his blows. Aizawa's presence helped, as he dashed his way throughout the villains. Both of them knew they were short on time, though All Might was glad that it wasn't his old time limit concern. No, he just had eyes, and a bit of background on Izuku. He could see that his apprentice was currently the only reason the class was still in one place, and he knew that it wouldn't last long, and with Aizawa's dry eye getting progressively worse, they would need to finish this quickly. That would be harder than he wished, however, as Shigaraki ordered Nomu to switch targets to Aizawa. The pro immediately attempted to erase the hulking figure's quirk, only for it to still be capable of blitzing him and smashing his head to the ground. All Might threw Nomu off of his colleague before more damage could be done, but Aizawa was still bleeding from his head and staggering. A concussion was likely. With his colleagues both in jams, and now with a convenient monologue from Shigaraki about the Nomu having several quirks, including shock absorption, All Might couldn't, and he wouldn't hold back anymore. 5 mighty blows later, and Nomu was flying straight up and out of the USJ. The sheer force of All Might's punches also sending many of the villains unconscious or otherwise flying up to thousands of feet away. The biggest threat was out of the way. Aizawa, being the incredibly competent and outrageously stubborn hero that he is, now took two opportunities. One was disabling Shigaraki's quirk, and the other was disabling the quirks of Kurogiri and the rest of Class 1A, an act that happened just in time as Kurogiri's portal was forced closed and Izuku's shield dropped, releasing the students. Thinking quickly, Izuku functionally ordered Ida, Ojiro, Tsuyu, and Soji to attack the now powerless Cloudman. Their mutant quirks were unaffected by Aizawa's razor, and Kurogiri wasn't much of a physical fighter. The four targeted the weak point at the villain's neck that was exposed in Bakugo's and Kirishima's earlier attack, and their rush attack was able to pin the villain. 13 joined in to deal with the knockout to the villain. In the plaza, All Might knocked out Shigaraki as well. With the main threat dealt with, All Might had a few priorities: get Aizawa medical attention, get the students out, restrain the ringleaders, and get a message to UA. Then, he would clean up the rest of the villains in the building. The first two tasks were easy enough. 13 was a rescue hero after all. So, All Might rushed Aizawa back up the stairs to the main platform in a flash, and, after checking everyone was alright, smashed the doors open. With them all outside, All Might had Kaminari check whether communications were working. When he confirmed they were, he also confirmed there was an electric quirk user with a range contained to the building. Either way, the rest of the heroes were on their way, and All Might could get to work cleaning up the rest of the trash that had piled up inside. Thank you all for sticking around, and I hope that you enjoyed. Before you leave, we would just like to let you know that We the Celestials has many other channels for your entertainment and viewing purposes. All the information you'll need is right below here in the description, so feel free to check out all the other incredible projects our team creates. Secondly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details will be in the description below. That's all for today's video, so goodbye, and have a divine day.